My name is John Pasfield, and the title of this reading will be Shakespeare and Cleopatra, Video 27, Shakespearean Criticism. So this is my novel, Shakespeare and Cleopatra, My Life is Not My Own. There are two eyes of different colors inside this mummy. If mummies tell stories, are two different stories being told, or is there some kind of unified story that's come out of the fact that there seems to be two people inside this mummy? Here's a summary. Cleopatra is dead, hovering between life and the afterlife. By some strange process, she becomes aware that a playwright is telling her story. Who is this Shakespeare? What does he know about her? What kind of Cleopatra does he intend to create? He seems to be unaware of her presence, but perhaps if she talks to him as he writes, she can exercise some control over the story of a life that she fears is no longer her own. Well, what is he writing? Cleopatra's in a room. She's dead. She's in the afterlife. She finds herself in a room with a person who's writing a play about her. That's all she knows. Later in the novel, she learns his name, William Shakespeare, but she doesn't know anything about him. You and I know. You're a reader. I'm a writer. He's writing Antony and Cleopatra, an excellent play, one of the great plays of literature, and so on. But she doesn't know that he could be writing a farce, a cruel play that makes her look ridiculous. So she tries to influence him as much as she can, but she doesn't know whether he hears her. And if he does hear her, she doesn't know whether Shakespeare's going to go along with what she tells him. Nevertheless, it's worth a try, right? She's in the room, he's writing. She can look over his shoulder and see ink on the page. Maybe if she talks to him, maybe she can influence him to tell her story in a way that will please her. Now, there are two items of criticism about the plays of Shakespeare in every chapter of thought of the main character of this novel, Cleopatra. I shall read these items of criticism and then talk about them. So let's do that then. Let's go to page 6 first of all. So these are items of criticism about the play, this play, and about other plays of Shakespeare. Antony is a battered old tomcat, scarred, bruised, raucous, and drunken. Antony is a great spirit, nevertheless. Okay, then we go on to page 13. You can see from 6 to 13. Means that there's a lot of thoughts in between in the mind of the main character. The play is the story of Antony's surrender to lust. There's a repeated pattern of a battle, a betrayal, and a reconciliation. So these are all critics commenting on the play that we know is being written in the novel, will be written in future. Page 21. Whoops. Oh, here it is. Okay. Cleopatra, the queen, is herself a consummate actress. The scenes are short, and the point of view is constantly shifting. Then we go to page 30. Cleopatra is as common as dirt. She lies, wheedles, deceives, screams, sulks, bites, and makes love with the tireless, unself-conscious abandonment of an old tinker woman. Yet, she never forfeits our sympathy. Excuse me, I'll clear my throat here. Page 37. The world of Antony and Cleopatra is immense. The play balances the ecstasies and rages of the middle-aged lovers with the cosmic consequences of their behavior. So just two people, but the consequences of their behavior are cosmic, larger than the world itself. That's a critic's comment, of course. Okay. The play is a tragedy of lyrical inspiration, justifying love by presenting it as triumphant over death. Not at all, says another critic. It is a remorseless exposure of human frailties, a presentation of spiritual possibilities dissipated through a senseless surrender to passion. So, are these the great lovers that we should admire? Or are these ridiculous people who take themselves too seriously? Critics disagree, is the point. Okay, 45 here. I'll just get the page number. No, sorry, that was 45. Okay, 54. My mistake. The story of the lovers is influenced by events which are significant for the entire civilized world. Again, how important these two are. The poetry of the play deliberately and repeatedly stresses a sense of vast issues and tremendous dominion. So again, how large their story is and importance to the human community. That's some critics' opinion. Page 64, some more opinions. Perhaps of Shakespeare's plays, excuse me again, perhaps of Shakespeare's plays the most wonderful is the Antony and Cleopatra. The sense of criminality in Cleopatra's passion is lessened by our insight into its depths and energy. So she's doing things that some people will be considered negative, but her personality overcomes that. We forgive her, say some people. 73. The chief persons of the play represent famous patterns of unlawful love, and their end accordingly is unfortunate. So it's a play about what not to do for younger people to read, says this fellow. Conflicts of love and honor, decisions that hold empire and joy in the balance, great personages, undying loyalties, all these are present in a story which is certified by history and glorified by this play. From 73 we go to 81. Everything about Cleopatra is impossible, mysterious, contradictory. Cleopatra is given qualities that make her an unqueenly queen. She lies, wheedles, sulks, screams, and makes love all with equal abandon. And then we go to page 90. The terms which are applied to Cleopatra create a many-colored mosaic. Cleopatra is not solely queen, nor solely harlot, nor solely witch, but unites in her person all these contrasting natures. From 90, we go to 98. The language of the Shakespearean play presents a depth of emotion that would normally go unuttered. So in a Shakespearean play, even though they're speaking out loud, they're saying things that people normally don't say, things from deeper down in their minds than you would find people speaking or you would find in other plays, right? Shakespeare presents deeper thoughts, though he presents them as the words that are spoken. The imagery of the Shakespearean play serves the self-interpretation of the characters and the expressions of their feelings. So the characters are figuring themselves out in a Shakespeare play. So this critic says, 107, in Shakespeare, the mixture of confusion, misapprehension, and sharp illumination characterize self-discovery. Shakespeare compresses and illuminates the imagery at the depths of his characters' minds. And so then 115, Shakespeare deepens and extends our knowledge of the character's inner experience. He shows the process by which each of his characters thinks. And just a couple more. 123. The Shakespearean main character sees through men and things. The Shakespearean character perceives what is false, visualizing that recognition through imagery. So the Shakespearean character sees more than the average person and expresses more than the average person. Okay, here are the last 3 quotes. In the mind of Cleopatra, the Shakespearean main character's thoughts carry further than those of others because that character sees more and deeper than they. The Shakespearean character thinks a thing to the end in a more intense experience, a reality. And the last one is this: Cleopatra is the most complex and in many respects the most astonishing woman Shakespeare ever created. No, those are all critical comments. Here's a note about them, how they work in this novel. I often make a very simple claim about my novels. The claim is that every word of the text of one of my novels is an image in the mind of the main character. However, the texts of my novels have more complexity than such a simple claim seems to indicate. One of the complexities of this novel is that the second main character of this novel, William Shakespeare, is writing a play about the first main character of this novel, Cleopatra. So, since a reader of this novel is able to read the play that the second main character is writing, I held it up, Antony and Cleopatra. It is also my claim that the words of that play are images in the mind of a character of my novel. Images in the mind of William Shakespeare, the character. So that whole play is in the mind of a character of my book. Why? Because he's sitting writing it as my book goes on. In addition, there are quotations about Antony and Cleopatra, the play and the characters, that are printed in the text of the novel. So I would add these words too, as images in the mind of at least one of the main characters, if not both. So those quotations, I'm claiming, are in the minds of these characters. Now, excuse me again, a person is aware that I'm quoting critics who were not alive until the second half of the 20th century might say that the words of these quotations cannot possibly be imagery in the mind of Cleopatra or of Shakespeare, since the novel seems to be taking place shortly after the year 1600 of the Common Era, when the play was actually written, Antony and Cleopatra. Well, okay, what's my explanation of this? I would reply that, strictly speaking, none of the words of the text are actually the thoughts of the main characters, but are rather ink and paper indications of thoughts, equivalents of thoughts, which I assume are actually chemicals in the human brain. Our thoughts are not words, they're chemicals, right? So the point I would make is this, there's 2. That although the thoughts in this novel are presented to the reader as an ink and paper artifact, you read them as ink and paper. Number 2, in actuality, every idea in the novel is a concept in the mind of at least one of the main characters of this novel, and sometimes of both of the main characters of this novel, as expressed in the chemical workings of the mind, as are all ideas in the minds of all human beings, and are being presented to the reader in the convention of the ink and paper device of the 20th century art form of the novel. Excuse me again. Therefore, the characters of this novel aren't thinking with these words, but they are thinking about these concepts. I would also add that the possibility that the characters might or might not agree with the concepts that they are considering is an important aspect of the thinking experience for the characters, and should be kept in mind as an important aspect of the reading experience for the character. So just because they're thinking about something doesn't mean they agree with it. So this is my novel, Shakespeare and Cleopatra, My Life Is Not My Own. It's found on Amazon, where there's more information. It's found on my publisher's website, roxmillspress.com, all one word, where there's more information. On my website, johnpassfieldnovels.ca, there are 2 free books. I wrote a planning notebook as I was planning and writing the novel, and I wrote a reflective journal as I was polishing the novel. And if you just go to the cover icons of those 2 books, that planning notebook and that journal, you can have them pop up on the screen and read them for free. All kinds of topics are discussed there about many aspects of literature and life itself. And lastly, I'll say thank you for watching this video.